Hi, good morning, everybody. Today's webinar, we're looking at the latest release of Cim200 on there, which was released in October. The sort of main new feature and function that was added into that release was the graphical scheduler tool, which is one of the main bits that we're going to be concentrating on within the presentation, but we'll also be looking at some of the other new features that have been released in the most recent and some of the sort of previous versions on that side of things there. I've got as people will be grateful for, a very, very brief PowerPoint slide on here. But what I wanted to do within the webinar was firstly just sort of like position why Cim have introduced the graphical scheduler tool into the latest release of the system, what the sort of benefits of such a tool offers, some of the key functionality that it gives within the system there. The graphical scheduler, I say, has just been released in the latest version. It's been released with Cim already identifying some future enhancements they want to and improvements they want to make to the scheduling tool on that side of things. So I'll mention some of those which will sort of help position where the tool is at the moment, but also give you an idea of some of the functions that Cim are looking to introduce in the future to the tool on there. I'll also discuss how you, as sort of Cim200 users, can make suggestions on future enhancements you would like to see going into both the graphical scheduler tool and the program in general. We'll then move into the live demo, which is the sort of fingers crossed point for myself. So as an introduction, you know, Cim have always had in their mind the idea that they wanted to have a graphical planner tool in the software on there. Ever since the program was first released, it's been the number one wish list item, both from customers and from the Cim team themselves on there. The challenge has always been with graphical planning tools are striking the right balance between having a system that is functionally rich without being overly complicated on the system there, and also in terms of either development or adding a tool into the product mix, is finding a tool at the right price point. So typically, you know, there are graphical planning tools out there, but they tend to be, you know, very expensive and very complicated to use on that side of things. Some of you may, if you've, you know, used Sage 200 for a period of time and have used the Sage 200 manufacturing tool for a period of time, may remember that Sage themselves used to have a relationship with Preactor and used to include that as part of the Sage 200 manufacturing offering in there. That relationship sort of dropped off, mainly because, well, partly because Preactor got bought out by Siemens on that side of things, but also because the tool was so complicated to use on there, the actual uptake of users making use of the functionality was particularly low on that side of things there. So what Cim have been able to identify is they found a tool that they can add into the system on there to give them a development tool that they found that they can link to Sage 200 and Cim200, and it gives them the ability to sort of graphically demonstrate the works orders and processes in that side of things. So that's what they've been able to add to the latest version of Cim200. As I say, this is a first introduction of the systems there, so there are changes that are going to come in the future to that side of things there. So the benefits that a tool like this will offer on that side of things is giving the ability for people to see easily across the company what the workloads are across the shop floor on that side of things. So to be able to see, all the operations that are being planned and, who needs to be performing those on there, giving that visibility gives people the opportunity to sort of control and plan the production in a more controlled manner on that side of things there. The tool also gives users the ability to sort of see in advance where either there might be situations where there are potential bottlenecks coming because there are, the same machines or labor resources are required for running multiple operations at the same time on there, or the opposite, that there's an imbalance between the load, which means that certain resources are being underutilized. So there's an opportunity for production planners to see that and plan around that side of things and adjust their production schedule to one that fits the company the best on that side of things there. So some of the key functionality that this particular graphical tool will give you on the system there is the ability to identify those sort of resource conflicts on that side of things. So the ability to see where there are multiple operations that are demanding use of the same resources at the same time on that side of things, and make that clear for people to plan around it on that side of things there. The tool itself also has sort of color coding within the system there. So when we come and look at that, you'll be able to see, glancing at the screen there are particular colors that are used. So within the demo data I've got sort of green, which is telling me that everything's okay and production is, going to be, production plan is showing that things are going to be completed on time on that side of things. Or alternatively, I've got, in this case, sort of orange items on there that are warning me that I've got jobs that are going to be planned later than I would like them to be on that side of things there. We've also got the ability to look at the sort of resource utilization within the system there. Now, there is the ability within Cim200 as standard within the sort of works order views to look at the capacity planning on that side of things. Within the graphical planner, this really sort of, supersedes that information in the system there. And again, using color codes in there, I can see where I am sort of like, my plan is going to overutilize particular resources, or where I've got, resources not being used fully on that side of things there. I've also got the ability within the graphical plan that the system will recognize dependencies and peg different operations and sub-assembly items on the system there. And what that means in terms of the pegging on that side of things is that if I have either, different operations within the same works order, or I've got sub-assemblies where I'm making items that need to be made to go into future works orders on that side of things there. If I was to move out an operation or a works order, the system will automatically move out any subsequent operations or works orders against that on that side of things. So if I'm changing my schedule to say that a sub-assembly works order I'm producing that was due to finish today, but I've made some changes, so I'm not going to finish it till Thursday, that will automatically move along to say any subsequent works orders that are using those sub-assembly parts can't start until Thursday when this works order is finished, on that side of things there. Within my screen, within my view, I've also got the ability of being able to search for particular operations or resources, filter my view on the information there, and group different pieces of information together on the system there. So if I wanted to, if I'd got a list of works orders and I'm showing particular customers on the group there, I might want to, from a planning point of view, want to group my works orders by customer on there, because when it comes to my planning, I may want to prioritize my planning to make sure that works orders for specific customers get done first, because they are my priority customers on that side of things there. So I've got that functionality within the system there. I've also got the ability from within my graphical planner to view and look at the details behind the works orders and the operations there. I've got my ability to lock and say these particular operations or works orders are locked into my production plan, so nobody can move those around and drag and drop those to alter them. And finally, the system is automatically a multi-user graphical planning tool on there. Obviously, that's controlled by access rights and user rights within the system on there. With the multi-user capability on there, what that means from a user point of view is the system will change each time somebody saves the information in there. So if you do have two users who are both logged into the production plan at the same time, the last person to save and make those changes is the person that will update the information on that side of things on there. So in terms of some of the sort of possible future enhancements that Cim have already recognised as potentially adding to the tool on there, at the moment, the graphical planner is looking at works orders and is looking at a production plan based on jobs that have already had works orders created for them on the system there. One of the things that Cim have recognised is it would be particularly useful if in the future the system, as well as looking at works orders that have actually been created, it will look at recommendations that have been made within the planning area on that side of things. So that's something that Cim have recognised on there. Another thing that they've recognised within the system there is in the first release, Cim is looking at the standard working days within the calendar view of system on there. In the future, what they would like to add to the graphical planner are the ability for users within the scheduler to make adjustments to the planning calendars on that side of things. And that might be in terms of things like being able to enter into the system that there is planned maintenance or breakdown time against a particular machine that will show that that item isn't available for a period of time on the system, so can't have jobs scheduled to it. Or alternatively, being able to book in holidays. So maybe if you're planning based on staff members on there, you're able to identify whether a particular staff member is on holiday for a particular day or particular week on that side of things there. Something else that is on the list of enhancements, although it is catered for within Cim200 itself, is within Cim200 against the works order list, as well as being able to see the list of works orders on the screen, there is the work to list where you can sort of filter on particular resources on there to see which jobs have been assigned to them on that side of things there. One of the things that Cim recognises with the graphical planner on that side of things there, that type of information being represented graphically may well be something that people would like to be able to show on screens within particular sections of the workshop, you know, the factory on that side of things, so individual areas can have their own whiteboard or white screen showing of these are the jobs that have been, you know, booked for you to do, and this is the order that they should be being done in on the system there. Another another change that Cim possibly would like to make within the graphical scheduler on that side of things is that users potentially could split out operations across multiple resources on there. So for example, you may have a works order that is saying there are 100 items that need to be drilled on the system there, and the way that the bill of materials and the works order would show it is all of those 100 items would be being drilled by the same drill on that side of things there. What you may want to do from a production planning point of view is be able to split that out to say, well, yes, we do have 100 parts that need drilling, but actually we would like to split those out so we have 50 parts going on drill 1 and 50 parts going on drill 2, so we can halve the time that that drilling operation is going to take on the system there. And finally, again, in relation to the scheduler on that side of things there, as I say, at the moment, the graphical planner and scheduling is looking at works orders on that side of things there, in a similar way to linking to the MRP side of things on there. One of the things that may be really useful is to actually recognize where there are purchase orders coming in specifically to allow you to make those items on there, that can be taken into account in the planning side of things there. So if a purchase order isn't coming in till Thursday, you know that you can't potentially start the production of a particular works order until Thursday, when that information, when those items are being received in on the system there. So one of the things that I mentioned on here, and apologies, I've spotted, I thought I'd gone through and corrected my slides on here, but I've picked up a slide that I've used previously on the system here, so please ignore the typo at the top on there. But one of the things that Cim have introduced is they have now updated their website on the system there and have specific website areas for customers and users of the software. So when you first go to the website, it will ask you to sort of register so it can recognize that you're an existing user of the software. But what Cim have introduced is on their website, they've got a product roadmap section on there that will include, you know, the versions that they have roadmaps for, and will include information about what is currently being planned to go into the roadmap for those future versions of the software on there. What they also have on the website there is a specific wish list section of the system there. So users have the ability of adding their own suggestions and wishes for functionality that they would like to see added to the software on there. You've also got the ability to see other requests that other users have made, and the ability to sort of vote against those items there. So again, within those wishes on there, when Cim are looking at development on that side of things, they can use the suggestions on there. They can also see, you know, which are the most popular recommendations on there to obviously take that into account on any future adjustments that they make to the system on there. So what I will do now is I'll go into my demo on here. So on here, there are a couple of the areas that I want to concentrate on. As I say, the main new feature in this example is the graphical, in this release, is the graphical scheduler. So that's what I'm going to concentrate on. But there are a couple of other sections that have been added in the latest version or more recent versions that I just want to touch on and show users on that side of things there. So what I will do is, first of all, launch into my demo data on the system here. Now, what I've got for the graphical scheduling side of things there, just to make things fairly easy and clear within the demo data on here, I've just got half a dozen works orders that I've got set up on the system on here. On the screen here, you can see I've got one of the works orders that already is highlighted in red on that side of things there. The reason that that particular works order is highlighted in red is because I've got a due date of the 8th of December when I would like the item being made for on there. However, as it's set up at the moment, I'm not planning to start the work until the 7th of December, which means I'm not going to finish it till the 11th of December. So at the moment, that is showing as being a late item on my system here, whereas the rest of my works orders are all showing on time on the system here. So before I go into the actual scheduler itself on here, I just want to go into my works order settings on here. So within my works order settings in here, I've got the options of what type of information I want to send out to my scheduler and what I want to do my production planning based on the system here. So in my demo data, and again, just to make the demo sort of quick and easy and make it the information visible from that side of things there, I'm just sending out scheduling based on the machines within the system here. I've got the option in here, obviously I could choose to send it to the labour instead. I can choose to send that to both of those bits of information in there. So I can have it, you know, be planning both on sort of labour, machines, and also taking into account subcontract resources if I want to, or I can choose, you know, one of those options on that side of things on there. So from within Sage 200 and Cim 200 here. From the works orders section on here, I can choose to launch my scheduler on here. And what that will do is send me into a web screen with that particular information on. Now, in my particular example, I'm using Edge as a tool on here, but the scheduler isn't, is agnostic in terms of what you use as a web tool on that side of things. So we'll work with, all the type of tools you'd expect. So Chrome, Firefox, all of those types of items on the system there. And if I just click on here to sort of jump to today on the system here, what you can start to see is I've got my lists of works orders on the left hand side of my screen here. Against my works orders, I've got individual operations relating to each of these works orders on my schedule on here. As I sort of mentioned, some of the color coding on here. So these green options for my standard works orders are telling me that these items are being planned in and are going to be finished in time on the system here. I've then got my orange warning on here, which is telling me this particular works order, number 67 on here, is my works order that's going to be finished late at the moment on that side of things on there. In terms of the scheduler on here, I've got two views and two ways that I can look at the information on the system here. I've got my works order view, or I've got my ability to switch views and to go and have a look at my my sort of scheduler view on that side of things, which gives me my resource utilization view on here. One of the things that you'll see on the system here is when I switch views, it will refresh the information on here. So if I had made any changes prior to changing this view and I hadn't saved them or uploaded them back in, the system will lose those at that point in time on there. So if I just flick my view on here, I can see I've changed views on here. I'm now in my sort of my resource view on that side of things. And this time here, rather than looking at my individual works orders, if I just scroll down my information on here, I can start looking at individual resources here and what has been planned against these individual resources on that side of things. What I'll do is I'll just switch back to my works order view to begin with, and we'll start looking at that side of things on here. So one of the things that you can sort of see on here is, as I sort of mentioned, I've got this sort of like drag and drop functionality on the system here. As I start dragging information around, what you'll start to see on the screen here is in the background, I can start to see a bit more information about my sort of my typical working days on that side of things. That's what these sort of like blue checked out boxes are on that side of things. And as soon as I've made a change to the system there, you can see in this case, by making that change and finishing that item later than it was originally planning to, it's changed the colouring again of that system there. So rather than being green and something that I was happy was going to be made in time on the system there, it's now changed it to orange to warn me that that's being late on that side of things there. In my top left hand side of the screen on here, I've got my undo or redo options on that side of things. So as soon as I, have made a change, I can start flicking on or off whether I want to recognize those changes on there. You can also see, as soon as I've made a change, it's now put a red box around this upload option on the system there. That upload option is effectively telling me that it's going to send that information back into my works order list within Cim200 and Sage 200 on that side of things. And that is in effect the loading or the saving or the confirming of the changes that I've made that I'm happy with on that side of things there. If I was to click on the download option again without uploading that information on there, what the system will do is it will just refresh the view on the system there, and it will lose any changes I've previously made on here. So it will get rid of me having the option to undo or redo features on there. An alternative way that I can sort of download and refresh my view is, rather than hitting the download option on there, if I just refresh my sort of Windows view on that side of things, again, that will just take me back to sort of today's view of information on here, and will get rid of any changes that I've previously made on the system there. Sort of the other thing that I can do on here, which is more really just a preference view on here, is I've got options of a sort of a light or dark view of this information on the system there. So depending on, individual users, whether they prefer to see things on light or dark backgrounds on there, I can sort of flick this information over on the system on this side of things on here. If I move into sort of the left hand side of my screen on here, what I can start looking at is, as I sort of mentioned before, and like sort of any sort of Windows sort of typical device on here, where I've got my sort of column view on the system here, I've got my ability to be able to choose the way that I want to sort my information on the system here. If it came to things like stock codes on here, I could choose to apply a particular filter to this system on here. So if I only wanted to look at or wanted to find particular stock items on there, I can filter my view to just look at that information on there, and can obviously sort of clear filters on that side of things there. Or the other thing that I can do within the system on here, as I sort of mentioned before, is if I want to change the way that this information is viewed and have a look at this information in a particular way, what I could choose to do is say that I want to group information together by a particular section on there. So in this example here, if I wanted to group all my works orders based on the due date for them finishing on that side of things there, I can be grouping that information together on that side of things there. Again, I've got the option of stopping the grouping on there. And as with anything within the system on there, and typically within Sage, I've got the option of choosing what columns I want to see on a particular screen on this side of things here. So if I had, was bringing information through relating to works orders for particular sales orders and customers, I can show that on my screen, on my option of information on the side here, and can build in sort of filters or grouping based on that side of things on there. If I move over onto the right hand side of the screen here, where I'm actually looking at sort of my schedule in a bit more detail on that side of things, again, within the system there, I've got the ability to right click and go into information on here. And so at this side of things there, if I wanted to, do a filter based on a particular operation that I have within my planning process in there, I can run that. So for instance, if I just wanted to looking at my pressing operations, I could bring that information through, or alternatively, I can get rid of that and have a look at all of my operations on the system there. I've got the ability of choosing to either sort of zoom in to detail on here. So I could zoom in to look at my plan down to sort of 5-minute periods in here, or zoom right the way out. So I'd effectively look at quarters within particular years on the system there. So individual users can choose how they want to look at that. I've either got the zoom function there, or using the control key and scroll on there will let you sort of zoom in, zoom out on that side of things there. Just for my demo, let's take it into a bit more of a useful sort of view of information on the system here, so I can have a look at things on the system here. As I sort of mentioned before on this side of things, when I'm looking at operations on the system here, I can pick an operation and I can sort of drag and move those operations on there. As I sort of mentioned before, this idea of pegging on there, the fact that when I've moved the first operation on there, it's automatically moved the second operation that is following on from that on the system there, will bring that information through. Likewise, if I tried to move operation 2 back, the first time I try and do it, it'll say, well, you can't, because of the order of the system, you can't be completing operation 2 before operation 1 on there. But if I was to move this information, try and move this operation on here and start dragging my operations along, you can see that moving the first operation has dragged the second and third operations along with it on that side of things on there. So within my information here, probably the first thing that I might want to do is, where I've got works order 67 that's going to be due late on that side of things, I might want to do the same thing on the system here. So drag and reorder my operations for this particular works order along onto the system here. So as I drag my operations on, it will place those into the right sort of sections on there. And at this point now, that works order has shown that it's going to be finished in time on there. So at the top of my screen here, in my first view, everything is looking good from that side of things there, because I've got a list of works orders on there that are all going to be finished in time on the system there. And that might give me my first sort of view of information on here to say, well, as a first pass, I can see all these things are being finished on time on here. But what that doesn't give me a view of, and what I then have on the bottom of my information here, I'll just minimize a few of these things just so I can get to my data more easily on here to look at on here, is now down at the bottom of the screen, I can start looking at whether I have any conflicts within my scheduling here. So whether there are other areas that are going to cause me issues on this side of things on here. So within this side of things here, I've got a number of operations that I've put into sort of a group of operations called packing on here, and I can see I've got a conflict on the system on here. Now, within this and within the way that my data has been sort of created within in Sim and manufacturing on here is I've got a group of packing operations on particular machines on here. I've got this initial conflict in here, but what I've got the ability to do is I can drag and drop these particular operations. So I could drag and drop these and put these onto other machines within the same group on here. If I tried to take them and put them onto a machine that's not part of the group, you can see I'm getting a warning message to telling me, well, you can't put this type of operation as a standard onto one of these machines on the system here. So what I can do on here is I can start dragging and dropping some of these operations onto other machines within that group onto the system there. And I can see what I've now done is I've now corrected on my packing side of things that I now no longer have a conflict on my packing side of things there. In my demo data, I've got similar information against the sort of press side of things on here. So I can drop some of these operations onto my system here to plan where those items want to be made on the system, and can work my way through my conflicts up until the point where I have no conflicts down at the bottom of the screen on here, and everything at the top of the screen on here is showing in green to be made in time on that system there. At this point, if I'm happy with that schedule on there, what I can do is upload to send that information back into Sage 200 and Sim 200 on there. When I come back to look at my works order list and refresh that view on the system here, we can now see that my works order number 68, which before was showing in red because it was going to be late, there's now no need for a warning against this item on here because everything's being made in time on that particular item on the system there. What I could also look at and sort of mention before on the system there is I could also, within my planning, sort of switch my view to my resource view on this side of things. And if I go to have a look at, again, look at some of my packing machines on here, as I click on individual machines at the top, and if I just go to today's date on the system here, what I can start doing on is look at this information on the bottom of the screen on here against individual machines on here. I can start seeing this utilization view of items in here to make sure that, you know, I'm not over resourced on particular machines on there, or can see where I've got gaps on particular machines in there. So again, can start taking that view of, do I want to consider, you know, either changing my production round or sort of adding information onto this, adding information onto the screen on there. If I go back into Sim200 and Sim200 itself, there are a couple of other areas where with the graphical scheduler, Sim allows you to hold sort of more information and start creating a bit more data for your scheduler on that side of things there. So one of the things that Sim will allow you to do now is, as I mentioned before, at the moment, the scheduling tool is based on the working week that you set up within Cim200 and your standard sort of calendar on that side of things here. So in my demo data, I've got a standard working week saying that we work from 8 to 5, Monday to Friday on that side of things there. However, what I can do is, if I wanted to, I can set up additional, calendars on the system there. So I might have a calendar specifically weekend work and say that for Saturdays and Sundays, we maybe say we don't want to work too early and we don't want to work too late on Saturdays and Sundays on there. And because we're having a shortened day, we might say that we're only giving people a half-hour lunch break on those days. So I can set up multiple calendars on the system there. And once those multiple calendars are set up, I've also got the ability, when I'm looking at my particular resources in here, so I'm going to keep looking at my sort of machines on here, but if I picked a particular machine on here, I've got the option of saying what type of calendar does this machine work on the system there. So I can say that either it works on the standard week, the standard calendar on there, or if I've got machines that have maybe their own particular schedules on there or are only used at particular times, I can apply that into the information on that side of things. Likewise, as I say, in my demo data, I've used the sort of machine list all the way through, but I could be doing exactly the same in relation to sort of labour resources on there, and again can assign those to individual calendars on the system there. So that's probably sort of the main bits that I'm looking at the scheduler on that side of things in terms of the demo. A couple of the other areas that I wanted to sort of focus on and show where Cim200 have added additional functionality in the last few versions on the system on here are, one of them that I wanted to sort of focus on is to look at sort of quarantine and inspection changes that Cim200 have made within the system on here. So within the stock control section on here and within the locations as a starting point, one of the things that Cim have introduced onto the system on here is when you add a stock location now, you've got the ability to say that a stock location is a specific quarantine location in the system on here. And the reason I've done that, so in my demo data, I've got 2 quarantine locations on here. I've kind of got a main quarantine and I've got a Scottish quarantine section in here. What I've also got in my demo data is I've got 2 other sort of Scottish locations in here. I've got my warehouse in Scotland and my shop in Scotland on here. Now, again, one of the changes that Cim have made on the system here is when I enter my sort of warehouse of Scotland in here, I'm able to associate that the quarantine location I would put anything that is coming into Scotland for is this particular quarantine location on here. So, and I can set that up both for my warehouse and my shop location on there, that they will, well, if I was buying goods in and I wanted those to initially go into quarantine for inspection purposes, they would both automatically get booked into my Scotland quarantine location on the system there. The other thing that has been introduced within the quality control side of things on here, which is where this information sort of moves forwards on here, is if I have traceable stock items in the system on here, what I am able to do is assign inspection templates against those particular items on there. And when I create an inspection template on the system here, what I'm effectively able to do is create a list of questions associated to that particular template on there, and also a list of answers and types of answers that I might want to give to a specific item on the system here. So I've got here just a very, very simplistic example on here. And in this case, I've just got sort of two answers or two questions with answers on there. So my first is just as a true false type question of, do the goods look visibly damaged or not? And I've actually got this the wrong way around on there, because typically I would say if they aren't visibly damaged, they've passed. And if they are visibly damaged, they've failed inspection on that side of things there. The other question I've got is I've then got a question of, in my example, it's sort of measuring temperature of goods on the system here, that in this case, I'm going to give it a numerical answer on the system here. And down at the bottom of the system here, again, I've been able to set up sort of a matrix of answers that will determine whether those items are going to sort of like pass or fail inspection. So in this case, basically what I've said is if the temperature is less than 5 degrees or greater than 15 degrees, it's going to fail inspection. If those items are between 5 and 15, they will pass on that side of things there. And within my inspection templates, I can set up as many inspection templates as I would like to produce on that side of things there. From the screen here, I've either got the option of applying that inspection template to particular goods on the system there, or in my example here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to my stock list on here. I'm going to look for a particular stock item on here. And so against this particular stock item, I can set it to say that by default, when we receive these particular goods in from a purchase order, they will automatically go into quarantine on there. If I wanted to do the same for items that I'm making, I can do exactly the same and just tick the works order completion option on here. I've also then, against the batch serial number information screen on here, and it's within this screen because these inspection templates are only applicable to traceable items on the system here. I can select from my list of inspection templates on here that will bring these items through as sort of default inspection tools for that particular item on there. I could still then within that choose to, if I wanted to, add additional inspection questions or tailor the responses for a particular item on that side of things on there. So just to show this in process in my best Blue Peter fashion, what I've already done is I have created a purchase order with some paint coming in on this side of things on here. So when I choose to book this item into stock on here, you can see on the system here, the purchase order I've raised it for is saying I want it to come to my warehouse. Because of the rules I've set up where I've said by default, I want these items to come into quarantine to be inspected first of all on there, that information's ticked and it's picked up the correct quarantine location that's going to. So if I'd said that that paint wanted to be delivered to Scotland, it would pick up the Scottish option on there. And so when I receive these goods in, I can receive these items into stock at this point of time on there. Let me just check it's brought that through, is it? If I close out of this on there, which I save it. True to form, I've got something funny in my settings in here. I'll tell you what, let's move on. And what I'll do on that side of things is if I go to the stock control side of things in here, I can look at a list of items I've got in quarantine here that are waiting for inspection on the system here. So I've got in this case a particular item that's waiting for inspection on here. What the system will do is I've got a list of how many are waiting for being inspected on there. If I go to my results on this side of things here, I can come in and start to add my results into the system in there. So in this particular case here, I'll say that I'm receiving 2 of these items into the stock in here. I can say, are they visibly damaged? No. I picked up from that example before, so I'll say they are visibly damaged to pack my pass in here. I can put some inspection notes on the system there if I want to on here. So that's the first question that I've moved to on there. I can then look at question 2 on here. So if I want to add my results here, what I could now do is say I've looked at one of them, and for one of them the temperature was 3 degrees. And enter some information on there, and we'll recognize that this item has failed on there. And I can also add for the second item that it was 7 degrees on there. All seemed okay. And record that item in, and it will show that that item has passed on that side of things there. What that will do is will automatically update my information against the system on here to confirm what has been done against those items on there, because they're batch numbered items. In this case, I can record that I passed one of those batches in there and can update all of my information on that side of things onto the system there. So can keep a record of what items are needing to be sort of inspected and the type of inspection that those items should follow on there. A couple of the other things that I wanted to mention that have been introduced into the latest version of the system on here are in relation to sort of bills of materials and the way that the system can work within the system on here, for a couple of examples on here. So one of the things that Cim have introduced as a change of a way of doing things onto the system here is Cim have introduced a function that they refer to as sort of base items on the system here. And typically the idea of base items, and it probably is most applicable for anybody that are making things in sort of liquids on that side of things, but really could be exactly the same for anybody that makes an item in a quantity and then wants to actually package that item out as a finished good in different quantities on there, so have different different stock codes and different bills of materials for the item on here. So in this example here, I've kind of got it based on making something with liquids on this side of things, and I've got a very, very simple example here where I make this particular mix, and to make this mix I'm using two particular components on the system on here. But what I have associated with this particular mix on there is I would then take that particular mix and use it to either say I'm going to use 1 litre of that mix to put it in a 1 litre bottle to sell off as 1 litre boxes of the mix, or 1 litre bottles of the mix, and the other option that I use 2 litres of the mix to put in, and let's correct that on there, to go in a 2 litre bottle on that side of things on there. Now, historically within Cim and Sage manufacturing in there is you would end up with multiple works orders to do this, because you would make this mix and then you'd have a separate works order to put the items in 2 litre bottles or the 1 litre bottle on that side of things. What I'm going to show you now is a different way of working on that particular item on the system there. The other thing that I wanted to show you in relation to this particular item on here is against the stock item for the mix that I'm making in here is I've got the ability of associating byproducts that I expect to receive into stock, and this can be both for made items or for received items on purchase orders on the system there. So against this particular item, I'm saying whenever I make this mix, I'm expecting to be left with another stock item as a byproduct of making that item on there. And when I come to make it, I can choose to say, you know, do I get based a quantity of each on the system there? Is it a percentage of the quantity of the receipt on that side of things? Or is it just a receipt on that item there? So an example of that might be if you're buying items in and you were receiving them on the pallet on a pallet and you wanted to control a pallet on there, you might say, well, we're going to receive, 100 items on a pallet. We want to be able to put the 100 items in, but we also want to say, well, we've got a pallet in our stock as well on that side of things on there. So having set that information up on the system there, if I go to my works orders on here, and what I will do quickly just to make sure that this works properly on here is I will just quickly in my stock control use another of sort of Sims features on here for something that while I've tested, I've obviously tested in and out a number of times on here. So what I'm going to use is this multiple sort of rapid order entry screen on here. So what I can quickly do is say I'm wanting to book into stock 100 items of component 4 and 100 items of component 5 on here. So again, you may have seen this in Sim already or not, but one of the things that Sim adds in here is typically the stock movement screen are moving an individual item at a time in here. Now I've got the ability of moving multiple items at the same time on there, so I can book all those items in on there. What I should now be able to do happily is issue all of my components onto the system here. And what I'm doing here is I'm saying that I'm going to make 10 litres of this particular mix on here. Now, when I come to complete the works order on here, at the top of the screen, I've got my 10 litres that I'm completing. At the bottom of the screen here, I've got the different options of the ways that I could book that mix into stock at that point in time there. So I could be just booking it in as the mix and booking it in as I want it to there. Or I could say I could book it into 2-litre bottles, and if I'm putting it into 2-litre bottles, I could only make 5 2-litre bottles with the 10 litres of the mix I'm making on there. Whereas alternatively, if I was putting it into 1-litre bottles, I could make 10 of those on there. So in my case, I might choose to say here, I'm going to make 2 of the 2-litre bottles and 6 of the 1-litre bottles on the system on here. I've also got the recognition on here that I'm going to book in some byproducts on the item here. In this case, because I've chosen percentages on here, it's showing me the information on here. As I click on now to complete and actually bring the information in, what the system will then do for me is will give me the option to say, okay, first of all, I made the original mix on there, so I can confirm that in there, and my mixed byproduct on there, it's calculated that quantity of 10% should be one of these. I could overwrite it, so if I've got 1.5 of the byproduct, I can record that on the system there. What it's now going to ask me to do is giving me just sort of the batch numbers. So because I've chosen traceable items here, it's giving me the batch numbers of bringing those items through. So first of all, I made the mix. Now for the 6 1 litre bottles I've got on the system there. I can receive these into stock on the system there, and for the 2 of the 2 litre bottles, I can receive that into stock at the same point in there and complete that works order and update my stock in one go rather than producing sort of multiple works orders on that side of things on there. Something else that has been sort of introduced in the latest version of Cim, which relates to my stock on this side of things on here, is what I've now got the ability to do, and sits within the stock record against supplier details on here, is I've now got the ability to enter into the system price breaks against per supplier, per item on the system here. Now, this information will be picked up, and that price information will either be used used within the MRP and the planning for the items on there, or will be picked up and used for standard entered purchase orders on the system on here. So you can see in my example here, I've said that from Malster, when I buy blenders, if I buy between up to 50, I'm paying £10 a blender. If I place a purchase order for over 50, the price goes down to £8.50 per blender on the system there. So what I can see is if I went in to raise a purchase order with that particular supplier on there, as I add my blender to the purchase order on that side of things there, if I say I'm ordering 45 blenders, you can see it's picked up automatically that £10 a price on there. If I was to change that to £55, so 55 units on there, you can see it's now updated and automatically changed that item there to £8.50 on the system there, and added that to the purchase order side of things on there. Something else that Cim have added into the system on there against purchase orders, well, against orders in general on here, but I'll show it within the purchase order section on here, is they've introduced the ability against comments to just set up sort of a quick text library of standard comments you might want to add against particular purchase orders or sales orders on the system here. So I've just got some examples on here. I've got the ability to go through and create sort of as many items as I want to have on my information there. I've got the ability to determine whether they picked up from sales orders or purchase orders on that side of things, or both. When I enter the information in here, I can either enter them as a single line or a multi-line information on there. So although when I'm picking it on here, it might look like I'm just showing one bit of information there, as soon as I select that and click it on to the system there, it will add that information onto my purchase order so that I can print that out and show that information sort of going forwards on that side of things on there for my purchase order on there. And the last of the points that I'd made, just to sort of show you where Cim have made a change and tried to sort of improve and make things easier to use on the system there, is again, within the stock side of things on here, against the traceability inquiries, Cim have introduced their own inquiry view on the system here, which gives you sort of far more functionality in terms of being able to sort of drill into information and sort of drill down on data onto that side of things. So if I want to look at a particular item on there, I can start running searches on that particular information. I can start sort of drilling down into information to see where those items have come from. I can sort of drill down and look at that works order so I can see all of the components that have gone into particular works orders, everything that's been made against those individual items on that side of things. So I can start to see a lot more visibility on that side of things and start making it far easier for users on that traceability point of view on there. Thank you very much for your time this morning, everybody, and I hope you found it useful. Okay, thanks a lot, everybody. Bye.